Hey Frag fam, Corbin here from Northwest Scent. You guys really enjoyed the video I did on my top 5 cardamom fragrances. So I actually have an idea that I will probably be doing a series on note specific fragrances. I also had some recommendations for that as well, with you guys saying you wanted to see more videos with that similar topic. So I think we'll do something like this going forward on a somewhat regular basis. But today we're going to be covering my top 5 leather fragrances. So again, in the same style as that video, these aren't just fragrances that have leather in them, but they have it as a very prominent note. I could have easily put 10 fragrances in this list that have leather in them, but I wanted to narrow it down to 5 to be fragrances that are really dominant with the note of leather. So if that sounds interesting to you guys, please stay tuned. But first, let's roll that intro. So leather, it can be used in a variety of ways in fragrance, although generally speaking it tends to be a more darker note, and so the fragrances that contain it tend to be darker as well. There are some fragrances that use it that are fresher, but in those instances it's as a really supportive role and it takes a far back seat. Like I said, these fragrances are all leather centric. They have it as a very prominent note, and as such these are all going to be darker fragrances and more suited for winter time and maybe early spring and late fall. But with all that out of the way, we're gonna be kicking it right off with number 5, which is from Bentley, and it's called For Men Intense. So this one catches a lot of hype in the community. I'm sure you guys have heard of this. I'm sure a fair amount of you guys own it, so you guys know about this fragrance. If you haven't tried this one, it's a really good buy. It usually goes for about $30 or even less, sometimes even $25 depending on where you find it. But this is a really high quality scent. It is from a car brand, Bentley, and many of these car brand fragrances tend to be on the cheaper end, not only in price but also quality. But in this case, it's actually a really high quality fragrance. I could easily see this juice in a bottle from like Chanel or some other like higher end designer house and be sold for like $80, and people would probably still buy it because it is really high quality. This one has notes of cardamom, leather of course, amber, and oak moss, so you can kind of get the vibe from that. It's really dark, it's boozy, it is leathery of course, and it's just a little bit kind of green and mossy in the base, but this definitely focuses on the aroma and the leather. It's a little bit sweet, it performs really well as well. I get about 8-ish hours, which is very good, especially for what you're paying for this. Some people get like beast mode performance, up to 10 hours. I don't quite get that, although my skin does drink up fragrance a little bit more easily than other people. So it's still a great performer nonetheless. And like I said, it's a great buy. Again, it was called Bentley For Men Intense at the number 5 spot. The fragrance at the number 4 spot was a limited release, at least for a time, in the private blend from Tom Ford. However, it caught so much hype and people loved it that they actually brought it back in a new line called the Signature line, which is basically the same juice but just in a more affordable line of fragrances with a different bottle style. The fragrance that I'm talking about, like I said, from Tom Ford, and it's called Ombre Leather. And yeah, this is another great one, and honestly this is probably one of my favorite leather fragrances, and in particular this one focuses on leather specifically from the name Ombre Leather. This one, it's sweet, it's very leathery, it's a tad floral, but this immediately smell this, it's a leather fragrance. It has notes of cardamom, leather, amber, and oak moss. So again, you can kind of get the vibe from that. This one, honestly, it smells very similar to like a new car. It's not a very pungent leather, it's very clean. This is really easy to wear, but it is still very classy. And then because it's in the Signature line, it is a little more affordable than the private blends, which I absolutely love. I've heard people talk about how, it was reformulated just to make it more affordable for this new line. I owned Ombre Leather 16. I saw no difference between that one and this one. So you're getting the same juice at a better buy here in this bottle. I'm sure some of you guys own this fragrance. This one, again, is a hype beast, especially from Tom Ford. This is one of the more sought after and bought fragrances from Tom Ford. But I'm telling you, if you're looking for something that smells like straight up leather with some sweeter, fruitier notes and a little bit floral, this is it. It's extremely masculine. I wouldn't call this one unisex. I know in general Tom Ford makes unisex fragrances, but for me this definitely leans masculine. Obviously, again, you can wear what you want, but that's just what my nose kind of gets from it. But it's super high quality. It's a fairly good buy, especially being in the signature line. And if you're looking for something that smells like leather, you can't really beat this fragrance at all. So again, at the number 4 spot, it was from Tom Ford, and it's called Ombre Leather. The fragrance at the number 3 spot is a fragrance that I featured in my video from a few days ago talking about the 9 winter fragrances I was most looking forward to wearing this winter. This is one of my absolute favorite fragrances in my entire collection. If I was told for some odd reason I had to throw away everything in my collection except for 10 bottles, this would easily make it into that top 10. This stuff is that good to me. It's fairly hard to find right now just because of COVID. They're not really shipping overseas, but additionally, this brand actually reduced the distribution on this fragrance to exclusively to, I want to say, Europe and maybe the Middle East. Nonetheless, it's an amazing fragrance and it deserves to be on this video. And it's called Dior Homme Parfum. So yeah, I'm never gonna stop recommending this fragrance, guys. I think it's absolutely amazing. It has notes of iris, oud, leather, and rose. And I don't get much of that rose. Definitely the 3 more prominent notes are just the iris, oud, and leather. This one's definitely in Dior Homme. You can tell that immediately. It has that waxy, lipsticky vibe. But what really separates this particular flanker from Dior Homme Intense and then the original Dior Homme is that leather and that oud. This is a very clean leather, kind of similar to Ombre Leather from Tom Ford. It's a little bit sweet. There's nothing pungent about it. The oud here is dark and woody. It's not dirty at all. In general, this is not a dirty fragrance. It's very loud in beast mode. I easily get 12 plus hours with this fragrance, and I have dry skin, so I know other people that can get a lot more than that. It's super elegant and classy. This is perfect for dressed up wear, dates, special occasions, weddings, that kind of stuff. But also if you're just wearing a leather jacket and you want to smell like a bad boy, this is another great fragrance that can do that for you. In general, I think this one's definitely worth checking out and sampling. I've encountered a few people that have not enjoyed it, but in general, this one has a ton of respect in the community and it's well deserved. For a designer fragrance, this thing is top notch. This could easily be in a niche bottle and be sold at niche prices and it would still be bought by many. I would probably even still buy it. I think this stuff is that good. So again, the number 3 spot, it was from Dior and it's called Dior Homme Parfum. The fragrance at the number 2 spot is another fragrance where if I was told for some reason I had to get rid of my entire collection except for 10 fragrances, this would be in that 10 fragrances as well with Dior Homme Parfum. This is another one of my absolute favorite fragrances. It was in my top 5 cardamom fragrances video that I did about a day or 2 ago, and it ranked number 1 there. It's number 2 in this video. It's from Memo Paris, and it's called African Leather. So yeah, this stuff is absolutely amazing, guys. This is another one where I will never stop recommending it. I think it's a perfect fragrance. If I was given the option to change stuff around in this fragrance, I wouldn't do it. I think it's perfect the way it is. It has notes of cardamom, leather, saffron, and oud. And from that note breakdown, you can kind of tell it's a little bit spicier. This one's definitely oriental. When you hear the name African Leather, you might think like, you know, like a dirty kind of skanky smell, you know, just like the wildlands of Africa and stuff. This one doesn't come across like that at all, honestly. It's spicy, it's sweet, it's seductive, and it's very leathery. The unique thing with this one is it is a little bit of a dirtier leather, but it doesn't smell fecal or anything like that. It's just a little bit more worn. Whereas like Ombre Leather is like a clean new car kind of leather smell. This is more like a old used saddle kind of smell, I guess you could say. It's not off-putting by any means, but it just smells a little bit dirtier. I think this thing can be worn in all the situations that Dior Homme Parfum can worn. It's very elegant and classy, and it's very unique. There's nothing else out there that smells quite like this one. I think it's an amazing fragrance. If you can't tell from the way I've been describing it, then I don't know what else I can say that will justify what I think of this fragrance. But I highly recommend you guys go try this one if you haven't. It's a perfect leather fragrance, so if you're looking for something that you can wear in a leather jacket and fit that outfit, then this will do it for you. It'll have you smell amazing. So again, the number 2 spot, it was from Memo Paris, and it's called African Leather. So my number 1 leather fragrance. Well, after all, this is a top 5 list of leather dominant fragrances. So the fragrance here I put the number 1 spot is the most dominant leather fragrance I have and I've tried. While the last 2 I spoke highly of and said that those I would keep if I had to get rid of my entire collection except for 10 bottles. This is one that just epitomizes the note of leather even more. I don't think it would crack into that top 10, but it deserves the number 1 spot just because of how leathery this fragrance is. It's from Tom Ford and it's called Tuscan Leather Intense. So yeah, this is exactly what it says it is. It's Tuscan Leather Intense. It takes that original DNA from the original Tuscan Leather, which came out in 2007, and it just amps it up. This stuff has notes of raspberry, leather, suede, and animal notes. And yes, in the note breakdown, it actually says animal notes. I thought that was pretty funny. But frankly, without the raspberry note in this fragrance, I don't think this would be wearable at all. The little sweetness you get from that just puts this thing in the wearable zone. So it's just a little bit sweet and tart from that raspberry. It has that leather, which is a really dirty leather, kind of like an African leather. It's like a worn saddle kind of smell. It's not like a fresh, new, clean car smell at all. It has that suede, which is just a different type of leather accord, just a little bit fresher. And then it has those animal notes, which this thing is definitely a little bit animalic. This is not a beginner fragrance in my opinion at all. If you gave this to somebody that was just getting into fragrances and let them smell it, I think they would be repulsed by this, frankly. But if you're looking for something that epitomizes the note of leather, this is it. This is a leather fragrance through and through. I think it is actually super classy, regardless of it being a little bit dirty. I think this is an amazing fragrance. And if you, like I said, if you want something that can be worn in a leather jacket, you want to smell like the jacket you're wearing, this is it. There's nothing that can top this in my opinion, at least from what I've tried. So again, at the #1 spot, it's called Tuscan Leather Intense from Tom Ford. Well, there it is, my top 5 leather fragrances. If you guys need a sidekick to your leather jacket, these fragrances will have you covered there easily. Now, if there's any other fragrance notes you guys want me to make a fragrance list video on, like this video, then please write that down in the comments. I got this idea from a subscriber who recommended it to me, and I can definitely do that for other notes you guys want to see me focus on. So please do that in the comments. And then while you're down there, maybe drop a like. And then if you guys could subscribe and hit the bell notification, that would mean a lot to me as well. That way you stay up to date on new videos whenever they get released going forward. So with all that out of the way, that's all I have for you guys today. I hope you guys have a good one. Stay healthy, stay wealthy, and smell great.